Hi, I'm Tonya Caruso. Welcome to Comcast Newsmakers, creating a safer environment in schools. Joining us in our studios this half hour, State Representative Matt Smith. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today.
Great to be with you.
Some new legislation, and not exactly in the areas where someone might think of when we talk about making schools safer.
Yeah, one of the things that I heard from constituents over the last 3 years, particularly parents with children who have food allergies, is the fact that they need to have their epinephrine medication, which is their Epi-Pens, on them at all times, because they could go into anaphylactic shock as a result of a food allergy at any moment, not only in school but at home or in other settings. So I put together a bill, legislation that would require school districts to develop policies to allow children who suffer from food allergies to carry their Epi-Pens on their person while they're in school, as long as the child can demonstrate that he or she can self-administer, they have physician's consent, they have parental consent, so there are safeguards in place. And I put that legislation together a couple years ago, and I'm very happy to report that we were able to get it in the final school code in this year's budget, this year's end of session school code, and the governor is going to sign it in the near future, so I'm very happy about that.
So up until this time, those pens were not allowed? Or?
It was school district by school district. So a school district was not required to allow a child to carry the Epi-Pen. So it was really hit or miss. And as we did more research on it, we discovered that some school districts allowed it, some didn't allow it. Some of the policies didn't match up, so they were either poorly written or they had exceptions that didn't really make sense. So we discovered that a lot of children actually were prohibited from carrying their Epi-Pens on their person. And the reason it's so important is if a child has a food allergy and goes into anaphylactic shock in a school setting, that child has to administer the epinephrine medication immediately in order to prevent the anaphylactic shock becoming something that's much more serious. So time is of the essence with this sort of condition, and that's why the kids need to carry it on their person in schools.
Yeah, and so moving from that, I know that diabetes management, education has also been another area where there's been some focus lately.
Yeah, that's another one where I talk to a lot of parents and their children who might suffer from diabetes, and they need to have the peace of mind to know that their kids will be cared for in school. And I have legislation that would require schools to provide and train 3 individuals at each school in diabetes management. So they would be able to spot if a child was low insulin, high insulin, and also administer the insulin injection to the child. So those school personnel would be trained. We're still working on getting that legislation through, but I'll continue to fight for that because I think it fits in with the food allergy legislation, the Epi-Pen legislation, in providing parents with the peace of mind to know that their kids are safe and sound in a school setting.
Yeah, so with the Epi-Pen, that is something that you can see can be transitioned easily. Something like the diabetes plan, if it were to be passed, then how long or how much of a transition period before it would actually be enacted in schools?
Yeah, you would need a longer period, about 6 months to a year, for the Department of Health, Department of Education to promulgate regulations, to promulgate guidelines, because that is a little bit more complex, and we want to make sure that the schools have the assets and the resources necessary to provide the training so that the trained personnel that they do engage at the individual schools actually know how to do the diabetes management, how to spot when a child might be suffering from a diabetes-related illness.
And again, how did this come up, this legislation?
Came up through constituents. I talked to constituents, parents of children with food allergies, as well as parents with children with diabetes, and they all presented the same sort of fact pattern to me, that they wanted to make sure their kids were safe and sound in school, and they didn't feel at that particular time that the guidelines and regulations were in place at each school or at their child's school to ensure that they are safe.
Yeah, and timeline on that?
Timeline, we're going to push. Probably won't get that done this session. We're going to push again next session to continue to fight aggressively to make sure kids are safe.
Yeah, well, State Representative Matt Smith, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks. I'm Tonya Caruso. Thanks for watching Comcast Newsmakers. We'll send you back now to HLN.